Joining us on the WBGO Journal is the 35th District State Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter, who is also the host of the new WBGO Studios podcast, There's Sumter About It. Great to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you, Doug, for having me.
It's a wonderful podcast. I've had a chance to listen to several of the episodes, and the phrase is keeping it real, right? And talking about important issues. And a lot of these people are people you have known for many years and are heroes when you think about it, when it comes to helping us get through the pandemic. Your great background in the medical and health field has really set you up for being a host of this podcast. Why did you want to do There's Sumter About It?
So, Doug, this show was really born out of WBGO's president talking to me and saying, hey, we need you on our show. And I had not thought about it. I really have a great cadre of friends who do some great work in the mental health space, persons of color and just talented, gifted individuals that are friends. I call them my sisters and brothers. And in fact, instead of me sitting in a chair, them sitting on the couch, it's more of me sitting on the couch and them sitting in the chair. I always say I have my whole team of support to help me get through this because, New Jersey politics is rough and tumble, let alone coming through a pandemic, was nothing short of really people taking care of people. And I really wanted to share with the listeners out there just the opportunity for some tools and techniques that they may not have thought of or found cliche to access mental health services and to humanize the supports that are there for persons who have a need. It was just important to me and really a heart project that we worked on. And I'm glad we got it all out there with WBGO in partnership.
Yeah, it's a wonderful series, but you think about, you always are talking to constituents and colleagues in the legislature. So you're used to talking. But as you know, the most important thing about being a lawmaker or being a podcast host is to listen. And so you do that so well. And in your conversations with people about these health-related issues, some of, not all your shows are about that, but it really comes across that this has been pretty much an easy transition for you to become a podcast host, hasn't it?
So it's been a transition. It's been using the artistic side of myself with some supports and guidance, really making it a conversation that's public and talking to my friends to share some of the great skills that they have and the value and even the challenges that they face. So, while you mentioned it's not just about health, it's also just about life, right? And how we tackle everyday issues with the supports of friends and colleagues. And, when you're fortunate to work in these spaces, which I feel blessed to have had a long career in mental health as well as health, let alone to be a lawmaker elected by people in the state of New Jersey, you really want to be sure that you meet some good people along the way. So it was taking those good people that I met along life's journey and staying connected and tapping in. And I can't say this enough, we went back to the old school telephone, right? We were talking versus just texting and FaceTime. And we were talking on the phone, checking on one another to see how we were holding up during the pandemic and post-pandemic. And those are the good things that I wanted to share.
I also wanted to touch upon the fact that you are the chair of the New Jersey Legislative Black Caucus. And as we think about Black History Month and beyond, because here at WBGO, as well as it's not just February when it comes to Black History Month. It's all year long. Did that also creep into your mind, that role of being the chair as you did these interviews?
That role is always with me. Doug, I often like to say, people like to put us in a box. You're this person this day, that person the next day. That's called schizophrenia. I'm one woman who's multifaceted in every title that I have. Chair of the Legislative Black Caucus in the state of New Jersey. I wear that as a badge of honor, and I take that with me daily. I work at the issues. It's not new. Some of the things we're facing. And whenever we can uplift the culture, all the work that we've done, those who came before us, to talk about what it means to be Black and an elected official, to be Black in mental health, to be Black, talking about healthcare, some of the tough issues that are usually stigmatized. Those are the barriers that I constantly want to resist and break out against. And I'm able to do that because I have experts in all those spaces who face challenges but still have overcome. And there's so much more to do. So it's exciting.
Before we get into the specific episodes, what has Assemblywoman Sumter learned about herself after There's Sumter About It?
So There's Sumter About It taught me that one, that I'm fortunate. I'm fortunate to know some experts in some very different spaces in psychiatry and psychology, in the school systems, as lawmakers that I can call friend. And they're from all parts of the state of New Jersey. And most of them I met either professionally or through my legislative career. So what I've learned was just to take a beat, to pause, and celebrate and acknowledge those relationships that I've been fortunate to have.
Can you maybe run down just a couple of the guests that you particularly think that people need to listen to right away, and why was that, and why did you call on them?
So one of my dear friends, his name is Juan Riestra. He is a doctor Puerto Ricano and a music enthusiast, loves jazz. I'll tell you, when we came into the WBGO studio, and I have been there 3 or 4 times, they never took me back where all of the CD collections were. So they took him back, showed him all of the Latin music sections, and he was just in awe and in his glory because he loves music. That's his outlet from the intensity of work. And he's a real person who loves what he does. Family man, community servant, and really just a good guy. So you see him outside of his profession, lending his voice to how music, dance plays a role in de-stressing. It's not always medicine. So I think that's great to hear. Another friend, Melissa DJ Perkins, she is a licensed clinical social worker, been in the field for over 20 plus years. She and I worked together young in my career. She's a mom, had to deal with teaching her kids at home while working for a hospital, and dealing with the pains and the suffering and taking care of people as well as her peers during the pandemic. So we talked a little bit about managing kids. My kids were in college at the time, was home. So I went back to college with them because they were home. So I was their classmate versus, them being away at school during the pandemic. So we talked through some of those things. Dr. Latoya Gaines, she's a licensed psychologist with her own wellness center, working to share mental health tools and techniques through technology and webinars, to share it with communities of color who may not have accessed it, but were feeling stressed and intense and needed that outlet. So really, just really remarkable. And then there's Dr. Dominique Campbell. She is part of the Black doctors who were there for us, telling us boots on the ground, what needed to be done. At the same time, had families at home, young kids in school, trying to keep them safe, coming home exhausted, reading everything, but yes, staying encouraged because we were talking to each other to uplift each other and pull them through. So those are some of my early guests. I also had a sister in the legislative work, Shanique Spade, and we talked about period poverty. We had some fun with that show, really being able to openly discuss women's health, women's reproductive freedoms, especially today when we're back to 50 years ago, where there's men trying to take control of our bodies again. I never thought we'd be in that fight, but we're here now and we're battle tested and ready to fight.
What's very important and quite interesting is, sometimes when we think about lawmakers, we forget that they have families. We see them as the people who are making decisions for all of us, but yet don't see you as a real person at times, right? Until maybe you see election time, you see commercials, and then you see the families or whatnot, and you and your children you mentioned. I think that's what's fun about There's Sumter About It, is that you get to not only know a little bit more about the Assemblywoman, but you get to see that she is a family person, right? And she has the same issues that she goes through that all of us go through. And when we think about politicians, sometimes, it can come with a negative stigma connected to it, right? But
Yeah.
I think through this podcast, you show your concern and you share your experiences. And I think that's what makes this special.
Oh yes, it really was. I try to humanize us, and often folks forget that we're daughters, we're sisters, we're wives, we're moms, and we're neighbors. Right? We're elected by our peers. I don't get to public office without my peers, my community, voting for me, and it is an honor. I've been in office since 2012. And I am just fortunate to serve a community that includes both urban and suburban persons, and really fighting for their issues day in and day out.
Think about that. That's more than a decade now that you've been a part of the legislature. Did you ever think when you were first elected that you would still be in office more than a decade later?
Doug, it took my youth. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. But I'm enjoying it. It's one of my greatest honors.
The wonderful thing about doing this on StreamYard or any of the other platforms that we do our interviews for video is we get to see a little bit either of your office or your home. So I'm going to ask you, behind you are a number of items and there's plaques. Is there one in particular there that really either makes you think of family, thinks of your career, or this show that you're most proud of?
Absolutely. So the picture that you see, the colorful picture on the wall, that was actually painted by a patient when I worked in the hospital. Framed a remarkable, talented artist, and this was one of those paintings. So it reminds me with humility of why I get up and do what I do every day. And then the fun one in the top, that's actually a weight belt award as Legislator of the Year from the ABC Construction Association. So, I got to be Rocky Balboa, Apollo Creed for a little bit. So that's a fun award. And then, of course, I have a little spirituality with me. I will praise God all the time. So there's two angels behind me and Mary, the Mother of God. And then that fun plate that you see there, that was a gift handmade from the Turkish community, who I also represent. And then a plate of the Great Falls in Patterson, a historic site, national park designated by President Barack Obama from my hometown of Patterson.
Wonderful. So, Patterson is near and dear to my heart because people like Jimmy Richardson, who has been very much involved as being a local historian for the town, and Hinchliffe Stadium and all things at the Great Falls there in Patterson,
Yes.
Because, I'm a sports buff as well. So everything that has happened at that historic stadium, and Larry Doby and now Larry Doby Jr. and things like that. But I wanted to ask you usually ask in an interview something like this, Assemblywoman, and that is, okay, so there's Sumter about it, and you get to change it up a little bit. You get to have somebody who's no longer with us come back and do the show with you. Who would it be and why?
So I would have Shirley Chisholm come back and do the show with me to talk through, especially as chair of the Legislative Black Caucus. I'm the first woman chair of the Black Caucus, established in 1976. We have members from Cape May all the way up to Hudson County. It's a different day for a political landscape. As I mentioned, the overturning of the Roe v. Wade decision, the continued senseless killing and brutal beatings of Black men and Black bodies in our country and across our country. We have in New Jersey, we still have the most segregated school system in the country. So really talking to Shirley Chisholm as a mother of working in the political space, leaning into the table, bringing her own folding chair to fight and advocate for the needs of the least of those, the poor, the women, minorities, to be sure that we're uplifting and battling to get the resources that are needed today. So I love to hear her take on lessons that should have been learned and never to return again, that we're now facing today, because history has a way of repeating itself. So I think I could learn a whole lot sitting down with her.
We all could learn a whole lot from sitting down. Shirley, what a great answer to that question. So we'll wrap this up by saying, What has scared you the most about doing this project?
Oh man, what has scared me the most was one, could I come up with enough conversation that would keep us going for the time we needed to be on air, and was it interesting enough for the world to hear? And of course, through coaching from the team members, my producers at WBGO, they set the stage, set the setting, and really coach me to be able to have the conversation and share my little piece of the world with the rest of the world.
Yeah, Jamara Wakefield has done a fabulous job with helping the show. There's Sumter About It. Now you can go to wbgo.org/studios and you can catch the episodes, as we will be releasing them all at the same time. And I would hope that there's Sumter About It second season.
We're working on it now. Jamara won't let me get away that easy.
35th District Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter is also the chair since 2022 of the New Jersey Legislative Black Caucus and the host of their Sumter About It, now available on WBGO Studios. That's wbgo.org/studios, and you can hear all those episodes. Congratulations, and we look forward to another season.
Thank you.